What difference can a dollar make? Can the dollar that's in your wallet mean the difference between you and your family being able to thrive, or you're being subjects of a credit-based debt slavery, unregulated wealth, and monopolist oligarchy? And does everyone have a right to attain their fair share of the American dream? The answer, of course, is a resounding yes to both. To abolish monopolist oligarchy and protect everyone's right to attain their fair share of the American dream, we need to abolish the entire credit-based Federal Reserve Act and the entire credit-based Federal Reserve System. It is a system designed to keep all tax-paying citizens debt enslaved through income taxes, which are collected to enrich the shareholders of the Federal Reserve Bank. Second, we need to regulate prosperity by taxing total wealth in order to protect everyone's right to a fair opportunity to attain their reasonably equal share of the American dream. I'm not trying to say that everyone should be or that we ever can be exactly equal. But we can be reasonably equal and a lot more equal than we are now. Everyone needs enough to thrive, and no one should be a billionaire or even a multimillionaire if we can't all be billionaires or multimillionaires. Folks, we can't, or at least shouldn't, all be billionaires because the amount of money being exchanged would simply be unnecessarily high. A gallon of milk just doesn't need to cost $300 just so that we can all be billionaires. But we could all be multimillionaires, at least to the tune of about $10 million or $20 million each, based on the current economy. In the rest of this video, I discuss how and why we need to accomplish both of these. Right now, we have a credit-based central bank that loans every penny of our currency into circulation. This loan creates the so-called national debt. The debt is only the interest that they charge for this loan and has nothing to do with the real expenses of the United States that you think your income taxes pay. Those real expenses of the United States are paid for by import and export tariffs, not income tax. Another very real problem that is breaking our economy, in addition to the national debt, is monopolization achieved through unregulated wealth. We are allowing billionaires and other monopolists to monopolize most of the wealth, and they are stealing from, infringing upon the economic and political rights and opportunities of everyone else. So, we have two very real problems with our economy that we can fix, or rather reform, as soon as humanly possible. Neither Congress nor the President are going to fix these things. And newsflash, Trump likes the national debt. He's already told you that he loves credit and that he knows how to manipulate the system. He wants to make you pay the interest on his wealth. So if this is going to get done, it's going to be because we choose to do it, and because we see the wisdom in doing it. According to usdebtclock.org, as of January 8, 2025, every U.S. citizen, including every brand newborn baby, owes $106,845 towards the so-called national debt. Donald Trump says he needs more babies and that he wants to make abortion completely illegal because he wants to force you and your kids to pay for his and his billionaire buddies' share of the debt. Christian morals, my foot. Shame on you for being duped into thinking otherwise. Everyone knows that billionaires and other monopolists who pose as capitalists and really good businessmen, don't pay personal income tax or much tax at all compared to their income. If you saw a billionaire walk up and snatch the sandwich out of a poor kid's mouth on any street in the world, you would be outraged, and rightly so. But if the same billionaire monopolizes too much and forces a bunch of poor kids' dads out of work and entire families out into the street, well, you say that's just good business. Baloney. Instead of allowing the feds to dump money into the economy in order to allow monopolists to monopolize more, we need to require monopolists to spend in order to keep money circulating throughout the economy. And we should require this with every nation we do business with throughout the world, not just America. Divided up amongst the people who actually pay taxes, each one of you owes $323,045. In 2024, we paid $1.34 trillion, or $4,188 per person, including every newborn baby, per usdebtclock.org, just in interest, just for using our own money. The national debt is the interest that the credit-based Federal Reserve Bank charges us just for using the currency of the United States. That's right, every penny is loaned. Yeah, loaned with interest into circulation, and because that money actually belongs equally to all the people of the United States when it is printed, they are literally charging us interest for using our own money. And if you're one of those people who don't think the currency of the United States does belong to us when it's printed, then who do you think that money does belong to? That's right, it belongs to the people of the United States. So they are charging us interest, better known as the national debt, just for using our own money. Donald Trump says he loves the credit-based system because he has figured out how to make you pay his share of the debt. You can technically buy back your share of the debt or the interest that you owe by buying enough Treasury bills, which sounds fair, right? But how many of you know that you can buy back the interest that you owe? And how many of you can afford to buy enough T-bills to buy back your share of the interest? Of course, our politicians have no problem letting foreign governments buy our interest by buying our quote-unquote debt, which has given foreign governments lobbying power to negatively impact our freedoms and liberties. But hey, who needs those useless things anyway? This quote-unquote debt has nothing to do with a nation's real expenses that you think it pays. Those real expenses are supposed to be paid for by import and export tariffs, at least according to the Constitution, which seems to be worth a little less than toilet paper these days. We can never pay off the national debt under current law. The more we pay, the more the debt increases because we have to continuously keep borrowing more to pay the interest with. Everyone knows they only loan you the principal when you borrow money. They don't loan you the principal and the interest too. The system would have collapsed already if we didn't keep borrowing more money to pay the interest with. But like good little debt slave citizens, we keep paying our taxes so that we don't wind up in prison. And we took their communist debt slave stimulus money too, just to survive. All free government money, including welfare, Social Security, stimulus, and even big government contracts are all communist money, by the way. Both paying taxes and taking the stimulus money both increase the debt and devalue our money. Some argued for the state of Texas to leave the United States just a few years ago. Talk of secession continued until it became known that Texas, as wealthy as they are, couldn't afford to pay off the national debt for every citizen of the state. That, folks, even though it kept the Union together, is still evidence of straight-up extortion and debt slavery. Some great country that we live in. Better than every other country, you say? Yeah, right. But that's why politicians keep borrowing more and more money. They have to. The bottom line is that our entire current central banking system is designed wrong. We went from abolishing chattel slavery in 1863 to debt enslaving every U.S. citizen when the Federal Reserve Act was passed in 1913. It is time to stop all of this foolishness. It is time to change the system and make the system work right. We need to abolish the Federal Reserve Act and stop loaning our currency into circulation. We need to do away with the for-profit, credit-based Federal Reserve Bank, the national debt, and the IRS, and replace all of that with the Public Reserve Act. We need to replace our credit-based model and its national debt with a non-credit-based model with no national debt. We need to require every citizen to live within their fair share of the American dream. We need to re-adopt Abraham Lincoln's greenbacks, which are 100% public and 100% nonprofit, and which are not loaned into circulation. We need to replace the Federal Reserve Bank and the IRS with the Central Bank of America and a public funds service, instead of using credit and the national debt as the way to limit the amount of currency in the system. We need to limit the amount of currency based on the number of citizens in our nation and by regular popular vote, which will tell the Treasury whether to increase or decrease the amount of currency in circulation based on the needs of the people. We need to regulate prosperity. We need to replace the IRS and the myriad of other taxes with a public funds service and a single total wealth tax. All other taxes should be abolished. In order to regulate prosperity and tax total wealth, by the end of every year, every citizen needs to have spent, donated, or paid tax until they own or control a level of assets that is within what anyone would consider a fair share of the American dream. That is, until the maximum that you own or control is no more than $20 million in real property and no more than $250,000 in cash. The $20 million and the $250,000 are my estimate based on the current economy. What a fair share of the American dream is should eventually be determined by popular vote. If you own more than your fair share, then you need to spend or donate the difference. Those who cannot spend or donate enough on their own need to pay enough in taxes to bring their wealth down to a fair share. So if you make a lot, then you need to spend a lot. If you earn like 1 million people, then you need to spend like 1 million people. Travel the world, do whatever. Just make sure that you spend enough. If you don't want to travel the world and you don't want to have to spend that much, and you don't want to wind up paying a lot in taxes, then stop working so hard. Stop making so much and start spending. When you have a lot, you gain a responsibility to give others an opportunity to earn some of that money. Enough money must continuously recirculate throughout the economy to provide opportunities for everyone to thrive. If you don't believe that you have any responsibility to anyone else, then you are sadly mistaken. Again, I don't want to be your neighbor, and you are invited not only to leave the United States, but leave the entire American continent. There are plenty of places for your evangelical, puritanical, theocratic fascist dictators and megalomaniacal monopolist oligarchs and autocrats in other parts of the world. Understand? We will always need enough money to continuously remain in circulation to maintain the needs of our public programs, including funding the government itself, our national defense, our national parks, our public schools, public health care, and all of our other necessary public programs. Sure, some of our public programs are unnecessary and should be done away with, but there are plenty of legitimate public programs that are necessary and should be fully funded. So we will still need to charge all citizens who have at least $10,000 in cash a percentage in taxes, just as we do now, kind of like the flat tax that you've heard about, with the difference that no one should have less than $10,000 in cash after paying taxes. And those who have less than $10,000 in cash shouldn't have to pay any tax at all. They are already using every penny that they have just to survive. They are not monopolizing wealth or power, to be sure. All other taxes should be abolished. Understand? No more being nickel and dime to death every time you turn around by some new tax or override or bond program. Now that's fair. Adopting the Public Reserve Act, re-adopting Abraham Lincoln's non-credit-based, non-profit greenbacks, combined with regulated prosperity and requiring citizens to live within their fair share of the American dream, will restore relative economic and political equality, which are absolutely necessary for democracy to make any sense. Anyone who refuses to live within their fair share should be required to leave the American continent entirely. I don't want to be their neighbor. You can help require billionaires and other monopolists to start spending by subscribing to our channel and watching our videos. We don't need your money unless you are a billionaire or multimillionaire worth more than $10 million. This will increase their advertising expenses. Every view is actually a vote worth real dollars that they will spend, and the more votes, the more we will be able to target specific billionaires and multimillionaires. At first, we will use the AdSense money generated to reduce homelessness and improve public education and healthcare. If we get enough support, we begin to make all of the common sense reforms discussed already, as well as election reform and term limits, patent and copyright reform, and many others. So that question again, what difference can a dollar make? Here, we have a credit-based US dollar, a quote-unquote Federal Reserve note, with an ever-increasing national debt, debt slavery, a myriad of unfair taxes, negative foreign influence, and no fair share of the American dream. The non-credit-based Public Reserve Act, or Greenback, will have no national debt, no debt slavery, no negative foreign influence, regulated prosperity, and a fair share of the American dream. With this dollar, newborn babies owe $106,845 from the moment they are born. With this dollar, they don't. With this dollar, you could actually revoke citizenship and leave the United States no harm, no foul. That is if you really wanted to. With this dollar, not so much. Now, what's in your wallet?